The BMW 318i Sport was the most affordable BMW 3 Series that you can get from BMW Philippines for quite some time now. But recently, BMW Philippines has released another variant of the 3 Series. This time it's a little bit more sensible, a little bit more affordable too. For 200,000 pesos less, you can get this car right here. This is the 2023 BMW 318i Business. Today, let's see if this car is worth 200,000 pesos less. Gone is the old 318i equals 1.8 liter engine. What you have here right now is a 2-liter twin-scroll turbocharged gasoline engine making 154 horsepower and 250 Newton meters of torque paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission. I would really say that this is very much appreciated because most brands out there, they've started going for dual clutch transmissions, but BMW is very adamant in keeping their conventional automatic transmissions with a torque converter. You'll see the drive later on why I love this transmission. Now, you can also get around 7.5 kilometers per liter inside the city and 19 kilometers per liter on the highway, which really breaks the whole common misconception that just because you have a BMW, that it's not going to be efficient. Driving this car, just like driving any other Euro car out there, it feels very robust. It feels very well built. There's no creaks, there's no rattles inside the cabin. And just like any other Euro car out there too, it is just whisper quiet in here. The older 3 Series, yeah, they drove really well, but they're not exactly the quietest out there. I've driven almost every single generation of the 3 Series since the E30, and this is one of those like huge step ups from 3 Series of old. It's just an incredibly refined car. This car is perfect for your daily trips, and it is also perfect if you do drive long distance very often, because the very moment you take this on the open road, on the highway, it's really quiet. It feels super stable. Even if you're going at really high speeds, it still remains very planted. It's no surprise that they drive this car in the Autobahn all the time, because you can really probably max this out to its top speed of like 214 or 224 kilometers per hour and not have any issues. Also, speaking of driving this on the expressway or on the highway, this car may not come with adaptive cruise control, but it has a very special function which I so far haven't seen in any other car out there. This has regular cruise control with a brake function. So for example, you set the speed to 100 kilometers per hour and then you suddenly encounter a downhill situation. You would normally go over 100 kilometers per hour and then you would have to manually brake the vehicle for it to get back to the set speed of 100. But with the BMW 318i, it can automatically apply the brakes for you, thereby putting you back to your set speed. Clever. Now, for the power of the 318i, having a 2-liter engine with just 150 plus horsepower, honestly, it really isn't much, and this car does feel pretty heavy. But yeah, for your daily drives too, this is more than enough. If there's only like 1 or 2 of you inside the car and you floor this, it does slightly kick you back to your seat once the turbo lag goes away, which is around 3 or 3,500 RPM. But yeah, it's not gonna win any races, at least when it comes to like straight line drag races. I really love how BMW insists on putting these 8-speed transmissions inside their car, because a lot of manufacturers, they like using dual clutch transmissions, and yes, those are great when it comes to high-speed driving, but nothing beats a traditional torque converter automatic transmission when it comes to smoothness, responsiveness, especially in stop and go traffic. You can easily creep this car forward even in EDSA traffic without any problems. You're not going to feel that weird jerking motion. It just makes this car feel really refined. For ergonomics too, I mentioned earlier that the seats, they're pretty firm. There's a lot of adjustments, but I failed to mention that there is yet another adjustment to this seat. You see, in most cars, you have your headrests, and headrests are really just head restraints in the event of a collision. But with the 3 Series, you can move them forwards and backwards to make them a proper headrest instead of just a restraint. You can just lounge on about here, and as you're driving at pretty fast highway speeds, you just put like your hand by the bottom of the steering wheel and just comfortably comfortably drive for long journeys. But what is annoying ergonomics wise is the fact that BMW for this new iDrive system has decided to remove any sort of physical controls for our AC system. And given that we are driving it here inside the Philippines where it is incredibly hot and you want to adjust your fan speed all the time, you don't have the option of doing that with just some button. You do have to go inside the infotainment screen, and while there is this like shortcut button for it, it still is pretty annoying. So what exactly is different with the 318i Business compared to the Sport? Well, on the exterior, it really isn't too drastic. The major differences here are just your body kit. So when it comes to having your M Sport kits, your M Sport bumpers, you lose out on that. So this is a way more conservative design. And if this looks familiar, that's because this is the exact stock body kits that you would get with the also recently released 318i Touring, the station wagon variant of the 3 Series. You can see right here, you don't have that massive vent by the middle anymore. You still do get LED headlights and DRLs though, and they really look nice. You even still retain your active BMW kidney grille, so these can open up if the car needs more cooling. Being the very traditional sports sedan, in fact one of the most original sports sedans out there, it still has that really nice proportions. You have a very long hood, you have a pretty short overhang by the back, and you also get 18-inch rims. Yes, these are still 18 inches just like the 318i Sport, but it's also a less aggressive design. If you take a look at your window sills too, instead of having like black, you now have sort of a satin aluminum finish, and that is about it. The rest of this car looks exactly the same as the 318i Sport. Now, despite being the less sporty variant, well, don't worry, you still have legitimate twin exhaust pipes by the bottom. This bumper too, it also houses your reverse parking sensors. You also get a reversing camera here by the back. And I also love how a lot of 3 Series have been doing this for quite some time now. They have angled the trunk lid in such a way that it gives you some sort of very mini spoiler effect. And the lighting assembly here too, I also love how there's some sort of like protrusion. It just looks a little bit more 3D from the car behind you. And just to give you the definition of luxury, this car even gets a power trunk lid. Yes, this is a little bit prerequisite when it comes to tailgates, but when it comes to trunk lids, having it powered, that is true luxury right here. And inside here, you have a very usable trunk, a quintessential feature of 3 Series ever since. This is just so big. It's not the widest, but it really is long, and you can even fold down those rear seats 40, 20, 40 for extra storage room. And now we move inside the interior of the 318i and check the door. A German car, that sounds absolutely beautiful. Now, the interior of this car, as expected of a car from a premium brand, it's very premium. In fact, it's very luxurious. All the leather touch points in this car is just exquisite. The seats, they're so nice. They feel nice to the touch. Your dashboard, it's really soft and plush. And even here on the side, there are very minimal use of hard touch plastic or low quality feeling plastic in this car. In fact, for example, this center console, that may be plastic, but yeah, it feels very solid too. And even your steering wheel, the very moment you hold it, you just know that that is very solid. And speaking of that steering wheel, you can tilt and telescope this, and it goes back really far towards you. That way you can really find your perfect driving position, no matter how short your arms are. And the biggest update for this generation of the BMW 3 Series is the dual screen setup. So not only is it a dual screen setup, but this also comes with a curved display. The response is amazing, and the graphics is also top notch. Right here on the left side, you have your instrument cluster. It's all digital, and you can also customize it in a couple different modes. And towards the center is an equally sized, almost, I think it's a little bit bigger. This is your infotainment screen, and what I love about this is that it comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it has this very cool feature. So you see this animation of your car. You can zoom in on it, you can look all around it, and if you turn on your turn signals, it also shows up. If you turn on your high beams, it also shows up right there. The screen, it's just so easy to use. It's a little bit more complex compared to the older iDrive system, but I would say that this is still pretty easy to use for anyone, even if they're new to BMWs. Just in case for some reason you don't want to use the touchscreen, you can also use this like scroll wheel by the center. It's also pretty easy to use. Now, the rest of the materials inside this car, instead of having like an aluminum trim as you would get with the 318i Sport, they replace it with a lot of piano black. And they look nice, they feel nice, but the biggest problem with it, as with most piano black, it is a fingerprint magnet, and it really is pretty hard to keep this car's interior clean because of that material. Now, as you open this one up too, you're gonna see that it looks like it has a wireless charging pad, but it doesn't. That's just a place to put your phone. You also get a USB port right here. You even have 2 cup holders, and then we move on to your shifter. BMW also upgraded, instead of having like a ginormous stick, you just have this like small tab that you can move on about, and it is so easy to use. You're never gonna mistake putting it into reverse instead of going to neutral, for example. But my complaint with this center stack right here is that the stop start button for the engine is so close to your driving mode button, so it's right above your sport mode button, and sometimes when you're driving, well, yeah, that could be a little bit of a safety hazard, but kind of just get used to it. Yes. Now, also when it comes to like storage spaces and all that, this car is also pretty good, because here on the side you can even put a big water jug, and you also get additional storage here by the center. Finally, I want to talk about the seats, and these seats are just amazing. For people who aren't really into European cars, you might think that European cars have extremely plush and soft seats. No, quite the contrary, they are usually very firm, and the same is true for the 3 Series. These seats are incredibly firm, but they are so ergonomic, and not only is it power adjustable for the driver's side, but you also get power adjustments for your side bolstering. So in case you enjoyed a little bit too much at the buffet, you can also just make it a little bit wider to accommodate your love handles. And if you have long thighs or legs, you even have a manually adjustable thigh support by the front. For safety features, well, you get 8 airbags in this car, and your usual stuff such as your ABS and traction control. And now here at the rear seat, we also check the door thud. Absolutely amazing. Now back here, just like a lot of 3 Series in the past, it's not really made to be a car that you're going to be chauffeured around in. It really is a driver-focused vehicle, and that really shows when it comes to legroom. Well, this generation really improves by a lot. Your legroom is also just about ample. It's not going to win any awards for the most space at the back, and the same is true for your headroom. But just in case you really do need to sit here at the back, well, don't worry, because you also have that same big water jug holder on the side. You get your own air vents. You even have a 3rd zone climate control, making this car a 3-zone climate control equipped vehicle. You get 2 USB-C ports too, and you even get this center armrest with 2 cup holders. In case you need to carry longer items for this car, you can also fold this center seat down, and you even get your own headrest right here in case you really do have to seat a 3rd passenger in this car. But yeah, as I'm about to demonstrate now, seating a 3rd person isn't exactly the best, because the center tunnel is simply massive, and it is so high too, so only use this for an emergency. Also, I want to point out that this car does get an ambient lighting system. You can even configure the colors, and the ambient lighting system even continues here at the rear seats. What honestly slightly ruins the 318 business though are the tires that they fit in it. They chose run flat tires, so what happens is that you have a ride that's firmer than how it's supposed to be, and also a little extra noise does creep inside the cabin. But also, the cabin is just so quiet, the noise insulation is so good that it slightly negates that. But yeah, it could be even better if only they chucked out those run flat tires. For ride comfort, well, the 3 Series of old, they had bone shattering, right? I remember I had an E90 and that would hurt my back often. I also had the F30, which improved greatly on that. But this G20 generation, especially this LCI, BMW speak for facelift, just is so much better. This now rides similarly to older 5 Series car, but unfortunately because of that, it also comes with it all the weight of the older 5 Series, but it still gives you so much room to just chuck this car around corners. It still is more than firm enough to have fun with it. But for everyday drives, well, there are better options out there which can give you a more relaxed driving experience. So in that regard, you can really tell that BMW has stayed true with the ultimate driving machine theme and made this car a sports sedan, not really a comfort-oriented sedan. But finally, we are in this very clear Riverside Drive. And this is where you can really stretch the legs of the 318i, because despite this car not having too much power, it still has the recipe of a BMW 3 Series. It is so fun to drive, and it simply is just so exhilarating. It may now have an electronic power assisted steering, so you don't have all that hydraulic feel, but man, the chassis control that you have with this vehicle, whether or not you turn off your traction control, is simply excellent. This car just gives you an exhilarating experience every time you are on a road such as this one. I've said in the past that you don't really need a rear-wheel drive vehicle to have fun anymore in 2023. And yes, I do stand by that. But that doesn't mean that a rear-wheel drive vehicle such as the 3 Series can't give you extra fun, because nothing beats the balance and flatness around corners and that sensation of being pushed around a corner with a rear-wheel drive vehicle. And I haven't really driven rear-wheel drive vehicles in a while now, but yeah, just sitting behind the wheel of this 3 Series once again really reminds me that, damn, rear-wheel drive is really the way to go. So at the start of this video, we asked if the 318i business is worth 200,000 pesos less. Well, the way that this car is and the way that it feels, I wouldn't say that it is worth 200,000 pesos less. It doesn't feel like it is 200,000 pesos less. So I think it really depends on your taste. If you really want a sportier looking car, then by all means go for the 318i Sport. But if you want something a little bit more on the classy side, something a little bit more understated, but also at the same time will save you 200,000 pesos, then this car is equally as good as the BMW 318i Sport.